Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. On this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place on the territory of Ukraine during the previous night of the local time. And first we're going to start with Orechov bridgehead with the Bradley Square. The Ukrainians during the previous nights and during the previous day continued their offensive operation in this area, trying to develop their bridgehead in direction of Robotyne. To be more precise, they were trying to develop their attack and to force the Russians to step back from the southern part of the settlement, and the Ukrainians were trying to move and develop their bridgehead in direction of Verbova. And when talking about Robotyne, the Ukrainians have some progress, we can say, because at least during the previous night we got at least 2 video confirmations that Bradley's machines are already in the settlement. When talking about the previous days, we saw how the Ukrainians were sending endless waves of infantry with one purpose: to create a bridgehead, to create positions, to dig in deeper, and there were no talks about the armored vehicles. But starting of the 20th of August, we see that the Ukrainians have already moved their Bradleys in mechanized forces in the settlement itself. What does it mean? First of all, that means that the Ukrainians somehow managed to suppress the Russian air defense, the Russian drone forces. Somehow they managed to protect the sky, and somehow they are able to redeploy more forces in the settlement. This is another evidence made from the Russian side. The Russians are saying, the author of this video claims that on this video we can see the movement and redeployment of Bradleys already in the settlement. So basically, we understand that currently the Ukrainians launched the accumulation of their forces, mechanized forces, armored forces, for the next attempt, for the next wave of attack further to the south, and basically even not in direction of the south Robotyne, but in direction of Novopokrovka. The next days are going to be very fierce clashes in this area, probably even today, because it's also very dangerous to keep forces, mechanized forces in the settlement for a very long time. They don't have much time. Even if they manage somehow to secure the sky, anyways, sooner or later the Russians will find a solution how to penetrate the air defense system in Ukrainian forces in this area, and to destroy every single armored vehicle in the settlement. So the Ukrainians have just hours, not even days, to continue their offensive operation with the purpose to force the Russians to step back. Another wave of attack took place on the eastern flank of Robotyne in direction of Verbova. The Russians published photos of results of one of those attacks, or probably of group of attacks, and basically on this photo the Russians managed to calculate up to 14 armored vehicles that were destroyed during another unsuccessful attempt. Significant number of forces. Another armored vehicle was a little bit closer. Anyway, because of this situation, I believe that it's time and we have right to update the map, because currently the Russians were moved further to the east in direction of Robotyne, in direction of Verbova. So basically currently this is the situation in the front line. The Russians are no longer controls these fields, and they were forced to step back further to the settlement by the name of Verbova. From the Russian side, we got the video how they were bombing the Ukrainians during their movement, during their redeployments along the front lines, along the trenches, along the fortifications, during the night period of time, the only period of time when the Ukrainians at least do have some chances to survive during their movements on the combat line, and the Ukrainians try to use this time as the best time for these purposes. Now we're moving further to the Vremivka tactical bridgehead. We have received almost nothing from this area, just a video of drone strikes somewhere in the vicinity of Velika Novoselovka. The most important update, the most important note about this video is that the Russians reported about destroying Ukrainian tank. And if you remember, yesterday we discussed that during the previous days the Ukrainians completed their regrouping and redeployment of the 1st Tank Brigade to the combat line, which means that probably within the next 2 days we're going to see more tank attacks and broad frontline attack from the 1st Tank Brigade in direction of the south of Vremivka tactical bridgehead. So we'll see. A very interesting video we received from Novomikhailivka. The Russians continue bombing and shelling the settlement and reducing the settlement to ruins. But currently, before we used to see two types of video. The first video was about three types, my bad. Three types of video we got from this bridgehead. For example, we saw the videos of stormings and tanks attacks. We saw the videos of artillery strikes and so on, and the Elmur missile attacks with the Russian helicopters. But when talking today, the Russians published a video how they were bombing the settlement with the guided bombs. So massive guided bombs, very powerful guided bombs, probably FAB 500s, and this video is geolocated, at least not the flight of the plane, but the area of explosions in this area. So the Russians continue bombing, reducing and destroying the Ukrainian fortifications and the strongholds around the settlement before the next wave of infantry and armored vehicles attacks in this direction. So the battle of the storming process of Novomikhailivka, according to my understanding, is about to begin. When talking about Klishchevka and Bakhmut, Artyomovsk, when after the Ukrainians were completely defeated in this area, and I'll remind you that yesterday there were very fierce battles and clashes in the vicinity of Andreevka. The Russians reported that they managed to destroy up to 12 armored vehicles, including Bradleys, 2 tanks and many infantry, lots of soldiers from Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians were defeated and were forced to step back, and today and during the previous night, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions along the front line, trying to attack the reserves, their positions, their artillery system that were supporting the Ukrainians during that attack. For example, in this video, we see how the Russians discovered the Ukrainian crab that was supporting the Ukrainian offensive operation, and after that, that crab was destroyed as a result of counter-artillery duels. A little bit to the north, we see the video how the Russians discovered now the Ukrainian air defense system, Strela 10, and during the previous 2 days, we got at least 4 or 5 geolocated videos of destroyed Strela 10 on the territory of Ukraine, mainly on the southern part and on Donetsk front line, South Donetsk and Donetsk front line. We see the strike of Lancet, and as a result of the strike, another air defense system was destroyed. So the Ukrainians couldn't break the situation, and initiative still in Russian hands on this front line. Very unconfirmed information, unproved information we got from Kupiansk front line, as usually the most interesting and probably the most suspicious updates are coming from this area. For example, one of the reports is that the Ukrainians finished the complete evacuation of hospitals and with the doctors, with the equipment and the wounded soldiers, wounded people from Kupiansk. So we understand that it's very difficult to keep your hospital right on the combat line because it will be always under fire and so on. So basically the Ukrainians have redeployed their hospitals probably in direction of Chuguyev, the closest settlement that can support and that can, or basically in Kharkiv, that can support and supply the level of clashes and the level of all this situation during the next upcoming offensive operation. Furthermore, there was one unconfirmed piece of information that was some sources confirm this information, some sources are saying that this is speculation and fake, and that the Ukrainians managed to establish the Russians managed to establish operational encirclement in Sinkovka, and basically, according to the author, in a day or two, the Ukrainians will leave completely the settlement and the Russians will enter this territory. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.